Hey everybody, thank you for coming back. I'm glad you made it this far. So in this video we're going to wrap up the project and get it all working. Now I won't go into details as to how to put the car back together because it's just the reverse of taking it apart and you already know how to do that. I will, however, go over the things that you need to do before you put the car back together and some additional things you may or may not choose to do. For example, you'll notice right off the bat that the lights are a little cleaner, and that's because I removed them and polished them with compound and put some chip clear on them. Now I didn't want to spend too much time on them given everything else I had to do, but they're good enough for me and a bit more functional. Okay, so at this point our car is still taken apart. Now before you begin assembly, and this is very important, you need to flush the system as much as possible. And you can borrow a unit like this from your local auto parts store or spend about $60 and buy your own. And it's very simple to use. You simply put the rubber tip forming a seal at one end and shoot pressure fluid so that it comes out of the other end. Now the reason I'm not showing you me doing it is because I didn't want to confuse you. I didn't have one and I didn't want to waste an hour going to buy or borrow one, so I quickly made my own out of parts that I had and they were in the garage. But for you I think it'll be much easier if you just borrow one. And the reason I say flush as much as possible is because you won't be able to flush the condenser. However, you can easily flush both the suction and discharge hoses while they're out. And it will be a bit more difficult to reach and flush the evaporator, but you can do it. And you need to do it before you reinstall the expansion valve. Two things we're trying to flush out: contaminants such as metal shavings from the old compressor and old PAG oil. If you don't do this, your auto parts store will not warranty the new compressor, and if you don't remove all PAG oil from the system as much as possible, your AC system will not cool very well, if at all. Okay, so after you flush your system as much as possible, you are then ready for reassembly. And two things you want to keep in mind is make sure you pre-lube all the O-rings with PAG oil and also pre-lube all mating components and surfaces. And remember to review your torque chart. Okay, so once you have the car back together properly, you are now ready to put a vacuum on the system. So get out your gauges and hook them up to your car as shown here, and also to your vacuum pump using the yellow hose. Now I already disconnected my yellow hose, but I've had a vacuum on my system holding steady for 1 hour. And as you can see here, we need 29 inches of vacuum. If your device does not suck 29 inches of vacuum, you may end up with air or moisture in the system, and this will prevent the system from cooling properly. Okay, so now let's talk about your Denso compressor just a little bit. Now most of the time when you replace your AC compressor, you have to go through very specific steps to ensure the compressor has the proper amount of oil in it. Now this compressor, however, is sealed and pre-filled, so you do not have to open it up to check for the proper amount of oil in it. And this is another reason why it is so important in this car to remove the old PAG oil, as the new oil in the compressor will eventually disperse throughout the system in predetermined quantities, leaving most of the oil still in the compressor. Again, you do not need to open this compressor to check it for oil. Okay, so we're finally at the point to begin recharging the air conditioning system. So first what you'll want to do is turn your car on and put your air conditioning on a normal setting. Now you don't want to put this car on automatic because the fan will blow at max speed, and what we want is a normal fan speed setting. So actually I put mine on 68 degrees and I manually adjusted the fan speed to a normal setting. Okay, so hopefully up to this point everything has gone well on your end. You put 29 inches of vacuum and you made sure that it held for at least 30 minutes. Now I decided to hold mine for 1 hour, and now we have our gauges properly connected. The yellow hose is now attached to your clamp, and do remember that it is best to clamp the can near the top, because what we're going to do is we're going to perform a slow gas charge on the low side, the blue gauge. Personally, I don't like charging on the liquid side. I'd rather take my time than risk freezing a component. Okay, so here's what is going to happen. You're going to open your low side of the line by turning the knob clockwise, and then you will open your gauge slowly, the blue gauge. What will happen next is that when the car senses a minimum pressure, the compressor will kick in. Now this usually is around 34 psi on the low side for most vehicles. Once the compressor kicks on, you will see your high side jump. You'll want to continue with your slow charge as you go through a couple of cans. Now my car does not have a rear unit, so it takes about 34 ounces of refrigerant. But another way to check yourself to make sure that you don't overcharge a system is to keep the temperature chart in mind. Predetermine what your end pressure should look like. So this car takes almost 3 full 12-ounce cans, so you actually have to leave a little bit on the third can. Now at this point, you should be able to put your hand in front of the AC vent once you have switched to your second can, and it should begin to feel cool. So anyways, here are our final results. We are steady at about 50 degrees, and you know what, I'll take that any day over Texas summer. Hopefully you ended up with a similar result. Now I tried to make the video simple as possible, and if you're still here, I got a feeling you did good too. So this video was made with non-professionals in mind. Anyways, automotive AC is not that difficult, but it is technical. Now I was going to include in this video the cabin air filter replacement, but I think this is enough for now. I will probably put that on a different video because actually it is not that easy to do that job. So thank you for watching, and I hope you come back and check the other video as well.